there is a very interesting panel discussion which is going to happen right now, and after this we shall definitely break for the lunch. Well, what is this all about? This is all about the digital threats that we have always experienced in our organization, the digital threats and strategies to respond to a new wave in cyber attacks. Well, the sudden outbreak of pandemic brought several adversities, but it also pushed digitalization by multiple fold. However, with digital growth, the rise in cyber threats too were also reported. Amid the uncertainty and the threat challenges we all faced, what should be the exact strategy for securing the leaders? Well, to talk more on this topic, I shall call upon our very Babita BP, Chief Information Security Officer, Catholic Syrian Bank, as a moderator. Can we have a huge round of applause, everybody? Joining her on stage for this panel discussion is SV Sunder Krishnan, Chief Risk Officer, Reliance, Nippon, General Insurance. Can we have a huge round of applause, everybody? Joining both of them will be Sunilkumar KN, Chief Compliance Officer, Federal Bank. I shall also request upon Mr. Praveen Mishra, Senior Vice President, Information Security, Yes Bank, to be present on the stage, please. I shall call upon Shashank Bajpai, Chief Information and Security Officer, Credable. And lastly, I shall call upon Stephen Panovski, President UBX Cloud. Can we have a huge round of applause, everybody, for our panelists? Over to you, Babita BP. She will be the moderator, and let's go ahead with this amazing panel discussion ahead.
Good afternoon. It is really a very bad time wherein we are pitching in for such a kind of topic. Please bear with us. I know we all are hungry, but the topic is very hot. The thing is, like, fortunate person also have talked about the security aspect, visibility, cyber security mesh, and now I want to tell you that every 11 seconds, somewhere in this world, cyber attack is going on. And by 2030, it will be 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, somewhere in this world, cyber attack is happening and will happen. And we, the technologies experts, should be prepared enough to face that. Whatever technology we are driving into or whatever digitalization we are into will be washed off within a second if some person get into our system. So that is why this topic is so important, and we have our great panelists over here who are expert in this world. And the most advantage thing I see here, we have Chief Risk Officer with us, we have Information Security Officer here, we have Cloud Expert, Compliance Officer is also there. So it is really a very good panel from all perspective of cyber security. They will be giving you their inputs or thoughts. So to start with, myself, Babita, I will be moderating this session. I am the Chief Information Security Officer of CSB Bank. I have almost 23 years of experience in the field of IT and security. It will be great if you can introduce yourself.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, I'm Sunder Krishnan, Chief Risk Officer, Reliance Nippon Life Insurance. Of course, information security risk comes within the fortinet of the chief risk or enterprise risk. And sometimes when CISOs leave the job, then I have to manage the CISO's job also. So that's been the 17 years experience in Reliance Nippon. Of course, I was a banker before and used to perform lots of security reviews. So that's what I bring to the table. Thank you.
Yeah, I am Sunilkumar, coming from Federal Bank. I am the Chief Compliance Officer there. So almost all the discussions what we are having, one statement will be there. This is the regulatory demand or this is the compliance requirement, so we need to meet that. So I'm not having any technology background per se, but I'm generally looking after the whole of the compliance of the bank. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Praveen Mishra. I'm Senior Vice President in Yes Bank, and I have around 18 years of experience in IT, in both the sides, IT as well as cybersecurity. I manage SOC, or rather many things in Yes Bank from technology security perspective. That's it.
Hello all, Shashank Bajpai here. I'm CISO at Credable, which includes even handling of cloud environment, because we are a fintech, cloud-born, cloud-native applications. So obviously, I would want to add my thoughts from cloud angle, and obviously security being a primary concern when we are leveraging a lot of public cloud services, be it on the infrastructure or software. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen Panovski, President and CEO of UBX Cloud. I'm a 25-year subject matter expert in information technology security, which is now cybersecurity, and infrastructure, which is now cloud. So I speak from that vantage point to all the wonderful people in this room and this incredibly powerful and well-vetted panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. See, when it comes to cybersecurity, it is not like cyber attacks are happening now, okay? It was happening earlier also. But the instances or number of attacks which is happening, as I started my talk, that it has come to 11 seconds attack is happening. And the loss which is caused due to this attack is in millions of dollars. So according to you, Shashank, what could be the reason for the rise of cyber attack?
So obviously, as you were saying that it is IT has become cyber. That clue stays that earlier technologies accessibility to internet was not as exponential as it is today. Right? We can see in the uptake of telecom, be it from the 4G to 5G consumptions. What we are increasing basically, we are increasing the bandwidths, we are increasing the consumption rate of internet, and what we'll be consuming. Obviously, we'll be consuming a lot of different services, be it banking being one of them. Obviously the rise in cyber attacks is not that it is not being targeted against SCADA systems or manufacturing systems, but it is more towards financial sector, because obviously the hacking incentive goes up when the systems are transacting finances, right? I mean, it could be insurance, it could be mutual funds, it could be anything. It could be capital market, it could be a bank, but ultimately the hacking incentive for a hacker goes uptick when he sees that, oh, it is a banking network or it is a financial services network. Let's try to kind of go inside it, maybe plant a bug, plant anything. I mean that's what they are doing. In fact, for a lot of SOC reports which we get, there have been back-to-back reconnaissance attacks, as you rightly said, that every second there is an attack. So what they are doing basically, they're just trying to get exfiltrate what kind of data these systems are handling, what are the end users, what is the geography this kind of systems are catering to, and obviously then they were keep on hunting for the vulnerabilities. And what you've seen in case of Log4j as an example, that the vulnerability existed long ago, right? As you rightly said, attacks were happening, so vulnerabilities also existed long back, but it was not exploitable, or it was not exploit ready. The moment the exploit tool came into the market, it was adopted for executing remote code, shell executions, left, right, center, and everyone was trying to put it onto their tool mechanism to kind of get that particular thing ready. So I guess that is one of the reasons when we see the uptake of internet has increased, the systems are more connected, more consumed via internet, and that is also giving an opportunity for hackers to sit across the globe and target systems other side of the globe, right? That is where I think it is the increase has exponentially grown. Yeah.
What you said is perfectly correct. And one part which I would like to add is all the attacks which has happened is not a zero-day kind of attack, which is the exploitation of the existing vulnerability in the system. So that is one of the things which we have to keep in mind when we talk about the cyber attacks. Praveen, from your angle, what could be the reason for increase in the attack?
I would like to add what Shashank said. Because if you look at the recent attack which was done on Uber, that's a big enterprise, but that was done by a 17-year-old guy, and he claimed he did it for fun. So, when an enterprise like Uber gets impacted by someone trying to, make a fun of it, and the outcome was a CISO lost his job. So that's the intensity of these cyber attacks. So the reason the attacks are, the first reason certainly new kids on the block, as Shashank rightly said, everyone got access to internet, everyone knows how to learn the metasploit or how to exploit the vulnerability. So that's where the primary reason is, as the vulnerabilities are increasing, the way to exploit also increases. Then also there are state-sponsored attacks. We had a couple of instances. We have AIMS. We had a couple of them. So that's another angle. And the third angle is we have new disruptive technologies coming in. ChatGPT, which is another. It is very simple to go ahead and say, ChatGPT, tell me how do I do a phishing attack or how do I write a malware code. So the new guy doesn't need to, write a code or set coding to, build a exploit. So that's another reason. And again, as rightly said by Shashank, the incentive is higher on financial side, but now it is not just restricted to financial side. In the pandemic, we saw manufacturing and pharma companies getting impacted most compared to the financial sector. And again, there was a recent study which says the market or the impact of cybercrime could go to 7.5 trillion by 2025. That's available on internet. So looking at the impact, we as a country are looking at the targeting 4th or 5th spot. And I think cybercrime industry is already reaching the 2nd spot. So ease of access is one reason, then intent, of course. Intent was always the reason, but the ease is available. And again, if you go on dark web, ransomware, which is the most impacting cyber attack vector, it is available as a service. So any guy has to hire them and target 2,000, 3,000 industries. Even if one clicked, he gets the return on investment. So it's kind of a business model now. So that's the reason for increase in the digital cyber attacks.
Yeah, when we talk about ChatGPT, it is a two-sided sword. Okay, how people are going to use depend on that. We have to be very careful, especially from the security aspect. So since you have touched upon the financial sector, attack on financial sector, one thing which I would like to say is, when compared to other part of the world, India is a country wherein financial sectors are least affected due to cyber attack. And for that, I would thank our regulators who have come up with a very robust framework, cybersecurity framework, which the banks have to comply with. And that is why during the pandemic also we were in a safe position. So sir, touching upon that, the compliance aspect of cybersecurity, I would like to hear from you, sir, from Sunil sir, from your side.
Yeah, thank you very much, Babita, for that question. Yes, compliance aspect, definitely. When we look at over a period of time across the globe, the regulators have taken a position that from a regulatory side, they don't want to stop the inventions or developments, but at the same time, they don't want to stifle, but at the same time, they need to protect the institutions as well as the customer base, because the entire economic activity and the financial risk-taking activity of the bank needs to be protected only when the customers are having the faith. So that is where the regulatory position is coming up. So we have seen from 2006 onwards, the regulators started the basic framework of the outsourcing related. So that is the fundamental guideline coming up when the bank is actually outsourcing a financial service activity. What controls needs to be built, how the banks needs to ensure and do the risk management framework. So this is what the fundamental coming from a regulatory side. Then from when the cloud was introduced and the cloud adoption has started, I think in 2018, one of the first regulators was Financial Conduct Authority of UK. They wrote to certain British banks on the cloud, please go slow and do the risk assessment to that extent. Then thereafter, almost the all countries, whether it is the MAS of Singapore or the HKMA Monetary Authority, they were all talking about some sort of guidance with regard to how the security related aspects and how the cloud related data protection needs to be ensured by the bank. As far as India is concerned, definitely as I mentioned that the outsourcing regulation is the fundamental basis coming up. Thereafter, IT and operations outsourcing also, similar guidelines have been given by the regulators. And C-site guidances are coming, which is incidental based, how we need to deal with a particular situation and all. And the cyber related aspect also, in detail, RBI guidelines are there. The same way we can see from the SEBI also. SEBI has 3 months back put up the consultation paper on the, again, cloud computing, how it is to be done. But when we look at all these approaches, what you can see is that the regulatory environment is putting a lot of burden on the financial entity and the institution to ensure that the appropriate risk management is followed by the institution to that extent. The SEBI consultation paper or RBI regulations, if we look at very, very clearly, it articulates even if the activity has been done by somebody else, either a service provider, and in the present stage it's coming up not only service provider to that extent, it is fintechs are there on the side and a lot of technology service providers to that extent. All of them, when arrangement is there, the primary responsibility lies with the institution, and the institution needs to do the risk management and the risk assessment appropriately and contractually bind all these parties that all the regulatory requirements, all the legal requirements are met. So this is what the basic framework. But when we look at this basic framework, and recently RBI has come out with regard to the digital lending very specifically, co-branding very specifically, all those things, 3 fundamentals are there. One is the fundamental principle RBI and the regulators talking about: take care of your customers. This is your customer. It is not the service provider's customer. It is not the customers of the fintech. It is the customers of the bank. And the data protection, data security, data privacy and confidentiality is the responsibility of the bank. How you achieve, that is purely your responsibility, and ensure that. And on the third part, they are actually talking about when we ensure all these things, it should all be done through a contractual arrangement very, very specifically. But the biggest challenge what the financial institutions are facing is, of course, we can put each and everything in a contract. But the contractual enforceability in a country like India is not that in a very higher level or a higher footing. Of course, we have this mediation, arbitration, all these mechanisms are there. But many a times, from a compliance side, as a compliance officer, as we have built this framework, how efficient it is to that extent is what the fundamental point. And 2 basic aspects. Reliance is coming on this contractual arrangement, and the bank's ability to call upon or terminate any service and demand anything and to protect the data of the customers is there. Second thing, do a regular audit to that action and make sure that, and it's a continuous process of risk assessment, continuous process of auditing, and make sure that everything is protected to that extent. So then coupled with that, we can see the domestication, and this is what some of the, Malaysia is one country, Indonesia, India is another country, seeing that domestication of the data. So you can't have it in a cross-border environment unless there are certain specific situations, and it is met to that extent unless there is a cross-border angle. And coupled with the last piece which is coming into picture, and of course if you look at the Western world or the developed world, it is already there of the GDPR equivalence happening in many of the countries. And If any one of you have any contract with a Hong Kong-based bank, you would see that the consent clauses which needs to be signed on the privacy and personal data management is running into pages. At least 6 to 8 pages consent is to be given. Whereas in India, we can even today see one single sentence, or my colleagues will also say that only 2-3 sentences, everything is on the earth is given the consent. So, but this environment is shortly going to change the moment the bill, GDPR equivalent, that legislation government tried, then now it has come the Digital Personal Data Protection Related Act has come. It has diluted drastically, but still it will again build a framework to that extent that how important is the data of the customers and how it is to be protected and what are the expectations. So this is the broad way, this regulatory framework. I would say it is not comprehensive, but it is not archaic. It is not completely innovative, but definitely it is not stifling the development. But that is what the way all the regulators will think. They need to protect customer, the institution, and the economy. So the institutions in that context are the pivotal role to play to ensure that the security of the data is ensured in full sense. Thanks.
It was really informative, and you have touched about many areas. And I'll come to you, Stephen, because I have a lot to ask with respect to cloud. Before that, I just want to get to Sunder regarding the insider threat, because since we are talking about the risk management and risk phases of what has caused for cyber risk, so what about the insider threat?
I think analysis of various attacks, we've realized that the insider attack is probably much more than the ransomware attacks or external attacks or other attacks, because you have vulnerabilities in various systems, databases, operating system, within perimeter, Wi-Fi, and of course now beyond perimeter, you connect it, because you're connecting the customer to the airport, connecting the customer to the lounges, connecting the customer to the cyber cafes and the residences. So even if an employee were to be connected from the residence because of, thanks to pandemic, do you have double mitigation strategies, security adoption? Do you have an authenticated VPN? And do you have combined that with a card access, remote card access? Or, when we drew up the remote security access guidelines, we came up with something like 40 additional controls or 45 additional controls in the insurance sector. I was part of that process. But I know when you go back and then implement them, it's going to be tough, because where are the budgets? How much do you need to configure? How do you adapt to the requirements? It's a tough challenge. So you would have lots of insider threat problems. And added to that, of course, is the reputation risk. What happens if the data is lost and you find that the data is there in the dark web? How are you going to face the privacy threat after the privacy bill is in force? Because certainly you're not going to get scot-free there, because you'll have to demonstrate you've adopted all the controls and security measures, and you've lined up legally. Legally, you might transfer the responsibility to vendors and customers through excellent contract management and taking specific consents from the customer. But still, the reputational risk is very high. As a player, if you do not take care of the data security in an enterprise manner, you still land in trouble, and therefore the mere cyber risk assessments, risk reviews and audits are not going to help you. You've got to go beyond that, ensure your reputation is clean, ensure that you're not attacked, or even if you're attacked, the response is good enough to ensure customer service is good, data security is sound, and how do you mitigate that risk of being attacked? When I look at the risk assessments of the cyber defense, you get so many threats and attacks. Every day I get reports from the VAPT and SOC of the SIEM, and it's mind-boggling the kind of number of risks that they draw up. And then you have to chase the operations team to fix that. But mind you, because what we did, we were safe from a ransomware attack, which happened to a sister concern. So, just some minor parameter changes. It's not minor, it's a major one now. So because of the reputation risk, we got saved from the ransomware attack. I just had one server which I had to keep it aside and then read that, but the remaining 179 or 190 odd servers were safe. And this was only because of chasing the red and orange items in the defense area. So a holistic response is very important, and it's going to be more and more challenging as months go by and years go by.
Yeah, when we talk about the insider threat, it is especially when we talk about the attack which has happened with Cisco, wherein we are having multi-factor authentication, VPN, everything was being provided. But unfortunately, the employee used the same password, and it has been saved in the web. Okay, so it is not done intentionally, isn't it? But it happened. Why? Because it should be each security is everyone's responsibility. So we have to give that training or awareness to the employees that what are the consequences when we follow for certain things, and what could be the loss that organization have to pay because of this small negligence which has happened from their end. So that is the main thing from the culture level, security, cyber security awareness, or it should be made that responsibility should be from each one of the employees who is working in the organization should be responsible for the entire security of the organization. So, Stephen, I just want to know, there was this immediate adoption of cloud, okay. After this pandemic, there was a rush towards cloud, and even BFSI is adopting to the cloud. So what will be your guidance, or what you will say that what and all things need to be taken care, or what are the basic things that an organization should look into when they're adopting to the cloud?
Sure, that's a great question. To kind of back it up a little bit, I kind of want to pivot a little bit on that insider threat aspect and just give everyone the clarity of understanding that our profession has now turned, the IT profession and my profession as a systems engineer has turned into a battlefield. And the benefactors of this war are, criminal syndicates, countries. They're turning our profession into a way of making tremendous amounts of money at the detriment of these organizations and these people and the banking customers and pretty much everyone. And although you mentioned that it's really everyone's responsibility to kind of play their role and to make to be security conscious and to keep things safe, I feel that from the top of these large organizations down is where it really needs to happen. They're the ones that approve the budgets. They're the ones that make the decisions. The not making a decision is still making a decision. And there needs to be a mixture of understanding of the business loss, the business risk, and the reputational risk. And all these things need to come into play. You can have the strongest technology out there with a perfect stack for data protection and cybersecurity, but at the end of the day, you may get infiltrated from an employee, right, with certain levels of access, or mentioning with an insider threat, or a contractor that's trusted, or a vendor. So looking inward as well is almost just as important as looking outward for those threats, and constantly challenge that. I've, from my perspective as running a cloud services provider, my motivation is to ensure that when a customer enters our environment, that they're entering an environment that's secured by design. So a lot of the legacy, on-premise infrastructure, on-premise information technology deployments, they come with a lot of legacy baggage and a lot of complexity that we as an organization simplify. And from a compliancy standpoint, when you bring a workload to our cloud or to a public cloud, you're automatically inheriting a lot of those controls that minimize, not eliminate, but just minimize that uplift. Whether it's a financial uplift or just simply, taking ownership of that responsibility and saying, this company is handling it now and this is what they do very well. On the insider threat aspect of it, even with all the ducks in a row, you still have to look inward and put the controls and put those measures in there. That might not be, apparent at a board meeting, or, your CISO and your SOC may not have an understanding of what's happening between that person in accounting that may be motivating them to sell your information or sell your secrets or sell their access. And I say that because from my vantage point, I'm handling and seeing the criminal aspect of this, not just the financial gain aspect of this. So as a part of our expertise as a cloud services provider, we move environments from location A to location B, and insurance providers, breach console, law firms, they'll bring us in to these situations where they're negotiating with the threat actors. Another team is brought in to do the discovery and the incident response, and then my firm is doing the remediation. And we're moving these workloads, or we're building these workloads that were damaged, and then we see the victimization of what's happening, the exploitation, the person in accounting who was bribed with a significant amount of money or Bitcoin to provide that information that ultimately let that threat actor into the firm. So these kinds of challenges are significant, and they're not entirely visible. Your SOC team will notify you if someone's breaching your perimeter, but they're not going to notify you if that accounting person has a threat against their family, or that is being bribed, or information brokers and information dealers, not even in the dark web, but in some of these technology campuses, there's information gangs that just pass information back and forth with the sole purpose of either financial gain or to just further strengthen their business operation. This is a business. It's and a battlefield at the same time. So directing that inward and protecting the inside as much as you do at the outside is just as important. And convincing some of these decision makers that this risk is real, and they can't rely on one vendor or one technology, but it's an entire assortment of offensive and defensive weapons. And unfortunately and fortunately, as this cloud services provider and a systems engineer and someone who specializes in data protection, just myself, we're the ones that are being put to solve those challenges, and we have to think 2 steps ahead of the criminals. So part of the reason why I'm here is to start pushing those boundaries of what is and what is not a threat out there, and how to manage them and manage that risk. One element on the insurance side, it's very popular in the United States, is that cybersecurity insurance, right? I mean, you would insure your building if in case the building burned down. Why wouldn't you insure your data? Your data is worth more money than the building. You can replace a building. You can't replace your intellectual property and the knowledge and the sweat equity that went into your products and the livelihood that your services are providing to these people. So the outlook needs to shift, and it needs to see how to protect those elements of it, and how to be aware of and have visibility into those things. And on the insurance side, it's becoming not only a huge business, but it's a huge necessity. The insurance companies are stepping in, kind of like how IT is stepping in to protect the environment. The insurance companies are coming in to protect the information, to protect the business continuity, to provide public relations services, right? A few years back, your insurance broker just sold you a policy. Now he's selling you a parachute, right, to save your business in case of emergency. So I want to see more of this kind of adoption in India. My business operates on both sides of the globe, and I really feel that this needs to kickstart. And the people on this panel are that catalyst. They're that flashpoint. They go to the insurance providers. They go to their vendors. They need to demand more, because at the end of the day, these things are business extinction events. So if you're not handled carefully, tomorrow you might be gone. So.
Perfectly what you have said is correct, Stephen. But one point I would like to ask you is, when it comes to supply chain kind of attack, and all the cyber attacks which are happening is a nation-sponsored attack, or that will be when they know that BFSI are adapting to a particular cloud vendor. Don't you think that is really a challenging point for you?
Yes, it is. I could speak volumes on this, but in general, the convenience of the cloud, public or private, is very appealing to this particular industry. And they're typically slow to adopt to these kinds of challenges, at least they are on the US side, where they're like, we'll let everyone else adopt to the cloud and then we'll stay and we want our server right here and we want our team right here. And the pressures from the industry to say, we want that visibility of you having this in an environment that we can at least test from a compliancy standpoint and not just check a box and say that it's okay. You actually have to check a box and actually do the things that go behind checking that box. And on the public cloud side, the responsibility is still there. The responsibility still falls upon the BFCI, the client, the person in that industry to hire the right teams, train the right people, and get the right human resources in play to kind of manage that environment. And the costs are tremendous. Even though you guys essentially print money, you still have to spend it and spend it cautiously. So on that side, I feel that we provide an advantage here because on the compliancy standpoint, we have an in. We have an understanding of where you need to be, where you are, whereas where you need to be, and that is inherently a part of that cloud journey. So when you onboard with a private cloud provider, you are not necessarily responsible for handling the lion's share of those compliancy pieces and the data immutability pieces and the data protection pieces because we're providing our solution that we've vetted for 20 plus years that's baked in, and then you can layer your additional expertise, software, and your stack on top of it. So it's definitely a partner-based approach, and just have that insight. And my word to warning on public cloud is that Amazon and Microsoft don't care about your data. They care about you accessing the website to access your data, and that's it. They want to make sure that as long as that element is provided to you, their responsibility is over. So be mindful of that and challenge your vendors. Show me my backups. Show me my reports. Show me the checkbox that you checked here for verifying my disaster recovery plan actually correlates to a business activity that meets that objective. Because at the end of the day, the person on the top who either made that decision or didn't make that decision is responsible.
Yeah, that is well said, Stephen. With that, Shashank, when we talk about security, we need visibility. That is what we are losing when we go to cloud. And as Stephen has mentioned, it's a partnership kind of thing that we have to do. So from that perspective, what do you think, what are the security measures that we have to adopt?
So well said by Stephen that, because tech is driving business, if anything goes down with the tech, the business goes down, and obviously it's an extinction event, what you were saying. And the shared responsibility model, as explained by Stephen, is very rightly making the security strategy more focused towards what the cloud service provider is not giving me. Right? For example, as Stephen said, they do not care about our data. So that is the first point. We start looking at what data points we are collecting, what are the APIs we are using to expose our data, or we are collecting it from third party service providers. And also, when we are storing it onto the cloud provided databases, are we kind of doing enough on the encryption side? Are we doing enough on the masking of critical data? Obviously, because these all capabilities can be built in on the platform which we build in. So these are the key focus areas which we focus when I talk about Credable as a fintech platform. We understand that yes, we are keeping the critical financial transactional data onto public cloud, and this data is what we have to be sacrosanct about. And what as I said from Fortinet's standpoint, that security controls are all distributed, right? And they kind of converge onto either logs or maybe threat intels. But when it comes to cloud, specifically when it comes to public cloud, cloud service provider will not be sharing a lot of infra and network level security parameters, because that is something which they are taking care of. They would say that is what we are offering you as a service. So why would we give you those threat intel points. So obviously then it boils down to that we have to deploy application-specific security controls, be it getting a security control built in on top of the application performance monitoring, because ultimately if there is a malware or if there is some ransomware kind of an event which is trying to exfiltrate data or kind of corrupt my data by encryption, it will go through the application landscape and it would raise those risk indicators as Sir was saying. So obviously those risk indicators have to be built in onto the application and data stack. And obviously then leverage that. So I mean that is how I look at the things when it comes to cloud native security controls.
Yeah, we are running out of time and we are stopping them from having their lunch. So I would like Praveen and others to give their closing comment.
So we talked about the threats, we talked about what compliance is needed and what the risk. So I would like to summarize, as the digital footprint is increasing, the risk of cyber crimes is also increasing. So now, what do we do to take care of this? There are three primary steps which needs to be taken based on my analysis or experience. The first one being having the right set of tools to protect your environment. Okay. Second being ensuring the tools are configured rightly. Stephen touched upon this topic because if you look at the all the attacks, and eventually you come to a conclusion that either the vulnerability was exploited or the configuration was not adequate, hence it was exploited. So if having the right tools, having it rightly configured would minimize your chances of being exploited. And the third and the most important one would be awareness, because irrespective of the best of the tools you have, the users would give away their credentials for a 1,000 rupee Amazon voucher. So that's kills the purpose of all the having the best set of tools. So ensuring the user is aware what is the risk of giving his credentials. So that's probably is the only method to survive in this. And the only line I would say, security is a journey. It is never you would be say that I am safe and I cannot be breached. As long as you are there, you are unsafe. So that's all.
Yeah. Mr. Sunil?
I will put the two things. One is from a cyber security perspective. Second is a cyber fraud perspective. I'm mindful of the time. As far as the cyber security is concerned and the cyber fraud, both are concerned, the incidents are happening because there is some sort of a laxity, some sort of a gap in the system. So when all the security breaches happening or all the data leakage or the incidents related to it are happening only because the protocols and rules somewhere the doors are opened. So that is what we need to completely ensure. On the cyber fraud related angle, I would say that even though it's a banking jargon or regulator always speaks about, the KYC, knowing the customer is very, very important. In the present environment, in the digital onboarding journey, it is mainly on the document collection and document validation. What we need to look at is that since we are not seeing the customer to that extent, we need to have a mechanism of managing the data's accuracy, the KYC data to accuracy to that extent, and also doing the transaction monitoring and early identify the issues. Anything what we are making ease of transaction is there is a control compromise is the reality. The customer experience has got a cost. So that is where we need to trade off and draw the balance very, very clearly. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was fortunate to attend a Israeli system which actually is supposed to sit in various minutes of the architecture. It would sit outside, inside, everywhere. And the kind of vulnerabilities that throughout was amazing, even in a very secured, sound framework. And it takes months and months to implement that. So the conclusion is that you're never safe, or the risks are always there. So it's very important that you manage your risks well, prevent risks through well laid down people, process, technology, tools also, and then detect them through various risk reviews and audits, and of course, more importantly, mitigate. The whole strategy should be how do you come out of the situation when you're attacked. And I can see a lot of attacks, especially in the external firewall, and so many logs are there, and you sit and review that. So I think this whole thing is a journey, as other colleagues said, and you'll have to be ready for all situations. Risk managed.
Yeah, so we all accept that we won't be attacked. We will be attacked, but how fast we are able to mitigate it. And now Mitra has come up with a new framework called Cyber Resilience Engineering Framework, where it states that it is about the anticipate that we might get attacked, anticipate the threat which happened anywhere in the world, and try to locate it in our environment, whether there is a chance that we might have the same situation. And we have to, after that, we have to withstand. We have to understand how our crown jewels can withstand this kind of attacks, how well our systems can work, even if we are attacked, how far it can affect the business. And next steps is with respect to the recovery part, how far we are able to recover the entire business back, and how far we adapt to the new latest technology to mitigate this kind of risk. So that is what Mitra has come up with, the new framework, and we have to follow the same thing. We have to adapt to the technology according to the vulnerabilities in the system, and ultimately the first line of defense is the technology. So secure by design is what we have to follow. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion. And when it comes to security, we can take even a day to complete the session. But since it's already too late, we are winding up. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for making us understand the importance of the strategies to deal with the cyber attacks and the digital threat. Now, as a token of honor, I shall request Ms. Anita Shreyakar, Head BFSI India SAC from Fortinet, to come on stage and give a token of momentum to all our panelists. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? I'll request Anita Shreyakar to come and first felicitate a token of memento to Babita BP, Chief Information Security Officer, Catholic Syrian Bank. Requesting Anita Shreyakar to felicitate SV Sundar Krishnan, Chief Risk Officer, Reliance Nippon General Insurance. Thanking all the panelists for such a wonderful conversation. As a token of momentum, Sunilkumar KN, Chief Compliance Officer, Federal Bank. Thank you so much. Mr. Praveen Mishra, Senior Vice President, Information Security, Yes Bank. Requesting you to present the memento to Mr. Shashank Bajpai, Chief Information and Security Officer, Credable. Requesting you to present the memento to Stephen Panovski, President, UBX Cloud. Can we have a group photo?